Okay, good morning.
And this is Damien, our camera.
Hi. Bill.
George, Bill and Ahar. Nice to meet you. Unfortunately, if we can dispense with the TV camera, we'd appreciate that. We're an apolitical group.
Okay. Is it okay if we just shoot the panel itself?
Nobody else is doing it. You're welcome to put up anything you brought with you for people to take away with you, stuff like that.
Because we actually, we do this with every group that we go to. It's kind of an important part of our campaign. We wanted to show everybody the process. So, as long as you're hosting it for all the candidates, you don't have anything to worry about.
That's what we're worried about.
Yeah, we'll make sure. We'll make sure that.
Okay, now he's going to basically stay back here, or what?
Yeah, he's just going to stay back there. The only thing that we'll shoot is we'll just shoot the panel discussion and we'll have the discussions during
I mean, the entire time?
Just while we have the panel discussion going, just the actual discussion up front.
Okay, that's going to be lengthy.
Right. Yeah. Well, what we do is we shoot everything and then we put the panel from start to finish.
Yeah. If you could just take a quick shot of it and then dispense with it, 'cause I'm afraid.
If you're concerned about it, we'll go now. We'll refrain from doing it, but we do it with every group. We haven't had any problems. Again, on a panel discussion like this, you have nothing to worry about.
Right.
As long as you're not up there and
Our
saying we
problem
endorse
is
X candidate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's part of my problem is that our national we cannot endorse anybody. And we don't, of course, don't want this used against us.
Well, like I said, as long as it's just a panel discussion, you have nothing to worry about.
Well, if we can do it just for a couple minutes and then.
Okay, we'll work on it.
All right.
I have introductions, which I will briefly read. And then if the candidates would come to the head table, we'll cut the deck of cards for the opening order, and which will be the reverse order for the closing statements. We will then have a question and answer period, which will alternate down the line. You know, the first guy becomes the last guy, and the second guy, etc. I'm looking forward to this, and I know it'll be an educational process for all of us. It's a pretty important election this year, and it'd be nice if we were as well informed as we can be. Mr. Jeff George is no party affiliation candidate. Jeff is 39 years old. He is a Cape Coral resident and has lived in Southwest Florida since moving from his native Warren, Ohio, at the age of 4. He enlisted in the United States Army, rising to the rank of sergeant during tours of duty in West Germany and South Korea. After his 5 years of service, he traveled the world as U.S. operations manager for wireless technology company, and later with an independent film production company, of which he is part owner. He is making his first run for public office during this campaign. In 2000, he self-published a storybook, and he made a film of Islam, Seekers of Knowledge, when he traveled to Damascus in 2004. Mr. Connie Mack is the incumbent Republican representative. He was born in Fort Myers in 1967, but grew up in Cape Coral, where his father was in banking. He graduated from the University of Florida, married and lived on the East Coast, where he served in the State House of Representatives from 2000 to 2003, representing the 91st District in Fort Lauderdale. He moved to Lee County in 2004 and was subsequently elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. He follows his father, who was our U.S. House member from 1983 to 89, and then senator from 1989 to 2001. Congressman Mack serves on a number of committees in the House, and Congressman Mack is married to the Mary Bono, Congresswoman from California. He has 2 children, Addison and Connie the 5th. Mr. Robert Neal was born in Tampa and has lived in Lee County for most of his life. He graduated from Riverdale High School in 1973. from Edison State College in 1979, and from the University of South Florida in 1984. Of interest, several years ago, he was a disc jockey on WSOR-FM, the gospel music channel, or station. Mr. Neal is an accountant and started his own business, Robert Neal Accounting Services, in 1979, providing bookkeeping and tax preparation services in the growing city of Cape Coral. Mr. Neal is a long-time Kiwanian and vice president of the Cape Coral Kiwanis. In addition, he is assistant administrator of the Florida District Key Club, a Kiwanis affiliate, serving high school students. Previously, Mr. Neal has served on the Cape Coral Budget Review Committee and the Lee District School Board Budget Advisory Committee. Since 1975, Mr. Neal has been an active member of the South Florida Football Officials Association. Mr. Neal ran for this congressional seat in 2004 and 2006. Senator Bert Saunders was elected in the Florida Senate in 1998. He served as chairman of the Senate Committees on Social Responsibility, Calendar and Environmental Preservation and Conservation. He also served on the Senate Committee on Health Policy, Health and Human Services Appropriation, and various others. Senator Saunders serves on the Select Committee on Property Insurance Accountability. Senator Saunders has a lengthy history of public service prior to serving in the Senate. He served in the Florida House of Representatives for 4 years and the Board of Collier County Commissioners for 8 years. Senator Saunders is an attorney of counsel with Gray Robinson. He attended the University of South Florida as an undergraduate and received his law degree from William & Mary Law School. Senator Saunders earned a master's degree in ocean and coastal law from the University of Miami. He is married to Dr. Lillian Love. They have 3 sons, Frank, and twins, Matthew and Jonathan. Gentlemen, welcome to MOAA. Take your seats up at the head table. And if you would, reach over and draw a card for the order of your opening statements. 7, King, 7. You two gentlemen draw again. Queen, 6. Bert, opening statements. You can either go here, this mic is hot, just turn it on, or up there, or walk around. Feel free to do anything you want.
May need some assistance from our technical person here. There we go. Oh. wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. My name is Bert Saunders, and as was mentioned, I'm a member of the Florida Senate, had been for 10 years. And it's been the highest honor for me to represent this area in the Florida Senate. We've done an awful lot of important things. For example, I've been involved in environmental issues, helping to clean up the Calusa River, Lake Okeechobee, the Everglades. Worked on a lot of issues involving healthcare, making sure that our citizens have access to good quality healthcare. And I've got a lengthy history that you can easily find on the state webpage, and you can also find on my personal webpage at bertsaunders.com. What I'd like to do this morning is, first of all, thank all of you that have served in the military and your families for your service. It's a high honor for me to be in front of a group like this. I spoke to a Military Officers Association in Naples a couple weeks ago, and you talk to the gentlemen in the rooms, ladies in the room, about their stories, and it really is impressive what our men and women in the armed forces today and our veterans, what they have done for this country, and we don't thank you enough. So I want to thank all of you that have served this great country for what you have done. This is a very important election, and I made the decision to run because I'm very concerned about where this country is heading. When you look at where we are today compared to where we were 3 years ago or 4 years ago, when the economy was cooking along very nicely, everybody was buying speculative housing, Everybody had a lot of money to spend. And then all of a sudden, it stopped. And today, we're facing some of the worst economic problems that we faced in many, many years, some say since the Great Depression. Now, we're not where we were in the Great Depression, but we're facing very, very serious economic problems. We're facing other types of problems also, the issues of energy independence, the fact that we spend $700 billion a year on foreign oil, transferring our wealth to countries that don't like us a whole lot. A lot of that money also winds up in the hands of terrorists. Issues of health care. Many of our citizens are one illness away from bankruptcy. The greatest increase in the number of bankruptcy filings in this country now is people 65, 75, and 85 years old. They've quadrupled because of one illness. Their Medicare doesn't cover everything, their supplementary policies don't cover everything, all of a sudden they're in bankruptcy. Immigration reform. We know that we have to stop the flow of illegal immigrants into this country and develop a legal immigration system that works for everybody. This country was founded on immigrants, and we need immigrants to come to this country, but we need the right immigrants coming to this country. You know, if you have a PhD in mathematics from China, and you want to come work with Microsoft in Washington State, you can't come here. But if you want to cross the border from Mexico illegally and join a gang and prey on society, you just walk across the border. That doesn't make any sense. So these types of problems have become so critical that if we don't turn this country around and solve these problems, we're going to become a second-rate nation. And I know that for those of you that have served this great nation, that's a hard pill to swallow. But that's where we're heading. We are not competitive in anything we do anymore. If you build a car in Detroit, a mid-sized car in Detroit, it costs $3,500 just for health care. You build that same car across the border in Canada, it's $3,500 less because there's no health care cost embedded in it. We can't compete. Our kids aren't getting the education they need to compete with kids from China and from India. And so I decided to run, not for myself. You know, my retirement is safe. I'm at the end of my working career. I've got another good 10 years, but I'm at the end of it. But I have twin 13-year-old boys, and all of us have kids or grandkids, and I'm concerned about them. And so I'm here to ask for your support in my run to be your next congressman, because I want to end the partisan bickering, I want to go to Washington, and I want to solve these problems. Because quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't solve these problems, this great country is in serious trouble. Thank you very much. I look forward to the questions.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff George. As you heard, it was announced earlier, like yourselves, many of you, I'm also a veteran. I was an enlisted man for 5 years, and I promise not to hold the fact that you're all a bunch of officers against you this morning. In all seriousness, I of course do want to thank you all for your service, and I think that it's important that we discuss the issues here today, not only as citizens, but as former citizens, soldiers, airmen, sailors, and Marines, because not only are we facing major economic upheavals and major economic problems, but we're also facing foreign policy challenges that are unprecedented. We have, in the 21st century, we have challenges to this nation that are threats without borders. We have the threat of terrorism, of course. We have the long-term problems of climate change, which are going to have an impact not only on how we live here in this nation, but also on our young men and women who are out there who are serving today and the types of missions that they're going to face. But of course, the big issue that everyone is concerned about right now, with good reason, is the economy. And like Senator Saunders pointed out, we are at a major transition point. And the thing that we have to remember first and foremost is not to panic. But realistically, the type of American power that we depended on before is no longer our current situation. We have to realize that we can't count on being the richest country and having the most money, or having the most troops and the most power and the most force. We have to go back to the fundamentals of what makes America, America, what makes this a great nation. We have to go back to the courage of our convictions, that if we're going to go out and we're going to talk about spreading freedom and democracy, we have to do so in a way that respects the fact that every man is equal. We have to apply the rule of law not only to ourselves as American citizens, but we have to make sure that the rule of law applies to everybody around the world. And I say that because too often over the past 8 years, I think we have put not only the interests of this nation, but our troops at unnecessary risk. We have put them into political situations expecting that they can come up with a military solution, when in fact the challenges that they face in many cases are more economic and diplomatic. So what really motivated me to run, and particularly in the way that I'm running, is I look at Washington and I look at the people up there and I see that we as citizens are not being represented. There's a huge gulf of communication, there's a huge gulf of understanding between the people that are in Washington now and the way that we're living our day-to-day lives, and that has to change. There's an issue of corruption. There is the fact that it seems that our politics are based nothing more on big money and the idea of greed and every man for himself, when we need more of a sense of duty, honor, and commitment in the people that are serving up there. Now, of course, every politician comes up here and tells you, I'm going to fight corruption, I'm going to change things. The question is how do you verify that? And what we're doing with our campaign is something a little different. You can see Damien back there with the camera. Everything that I do and say on the campaign trail, every meeting I go to, every event that I go to, we videotape. And then we put all of that footage up there from start to finish so that we have 100% transparency and so that you can guarantee that you have from your representative the integrity and accountability that you need. I look forward to taking your questions, and we will pass this on. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Robert Neild, and I'm running for this office because I want to represent you in the United States House of Representatives. I've lived in Lee County since 1956. I was born in Tampa. My father moved my family here when I was 9 months old. I was educated in Lee County schools, attended Edison Community College and the University of South Florida when it had its campus here. I graduated from high school just at the end of the Vietnam War, and so I never served in the military. It wasn't because I wasn't drafted, I wasn't required to be drafted. I did carry my draft card, but I never served in the military, and I thank you for your service. At some time in your lives, each of you has heard the call to service to your country. This morning I'm here to tell you that your country is calling again. We need you again. The thing that sets me apart from the other candidates in this race is when I ran for this office in 2004, I was worried about the deficit. At that time it was only about $8 trillion, but that was way too much deficit for our country to be economically sound. Since then, it has increased to over $10 trillion, and now we have a huge problem. As you can tell, our jobs are going away, our economy has slowed from the heated pace of 2004 through 2006. Many people are unemployed. Maybe your children and grandchildren are searching for work or in jeopardy of losing their homes. I was in 2004 talking about cutting the deficit. There's only two ways to cut the deficit. One is to increase revenues, the other is to decrease expenditures. I have concrete plans to do both those things, and by decreasing the deficit, then there's more money running around out there for you and I to use to do our business and create jobs for other folks to work and provide for their families. So the call that's being made to you today is to reject the offers of more tax cuts. We have to pay our taxes, folks, in order to keep the revenues strong. Tax cuts will only increase the deficit. We must also end the senseless war in Iraq. Quit spending the money that we're spending over there while they're enjoying a surplus in their budget. We have to do these things, and your country is calling on you again to serve once again in your later years and make this country once again strong. Thank you for inviting me this morning. I too look forward to your questions, and I hope that you'll listen carefully to the answers and the proposals that each candidate makes to see which one better serves your interests. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening statements, gentlemen. We'll now go into the question and answer. We'll go right down the line, starting with Mr. George and Bert, and then Mr. Neal. First question concerns finance and national debt. Please state your position in regard to what has been referred to as the bailout of institutions such as Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, AIG, and the government purchase of non-viable mortgage instruments. This is perhaps amounts to at least $1 trillion. What is your position and what is your solution?
Thank you. First of all, I think that we're, like as he pointed out, we're looking at a number of separate things that have been done in the process of the bailout. When we talk about AIG and Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and some of the things that have been done with those, I tend to agree with what was done in those cases. However, when we talk about the big enchilada, the big $700 billion bailout package that was passed last week, I am firmly opposed to that for a number of reasons. And all these reasons stem from the fact these aren't ideological reasons, these are practical reasons. The big issue that we have in this country and around the world is we have a financial system that is essentially based on nothing more than debt. The monetary system that we have is largely built on a fractional reserve system, which is built on debt upon debt upon debt. If you look at what we have in the business sector in this country, in the personal financial section, and certainly with the federal debt of now going over $10 trillion, we're adding debt to debt. Now we talk about this $700 billion bailout package. We talk about the idea of going out there and buying bad loans that, first of all, nobody has no idea how much these loans are actually worth. So how and the Treasury Department has yet to put together or present a viable plan for how they're going to pay for these. But the bottom line is we're spending upwards of above $700 billion in debt that we, the taxpayers, are going to have to pay to bail out these bad debts. And then we're going to borrow this money from essentially the exact same banking system and pay them interest. And this is a mistake. Now I know there's a lot of things about buying into equity and all that sort of thing that they're discussing now. But the bottom line is we have to look at the fundamentals of the economy. And we have to face the fact that we are in a transition. Now, in order to get through this transition, not only are we going to have to address the problems within our monetary system, not only are we going to have to increase regulation in the banking sector and in the trade sector across the board, we also have to look at how we're going to take care of Americans in the meantime as we're going through this transition. And it is absolutely essential that we invest in the American worker, that we invest once again in the middle class. That we make sure that we are building the infrastructure that we need in terms of schools, in terms of medical care, in terms of roads and highways.
I'm sorry, I'm about to tell you, gentlemen, try to keep it between 1 and 2 minutes for your
1 and 2 minutes? Okay, I'm sorry.
I apologize.
No problem. In that case, I don't want to run on any further. Hopefully we'll be able to discuss this in a little more detail as more questions come up. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, the economy is the #1 question of the day. I supported the bailout, and I sent a letter to the editor of the newspaper here in Cape Coral and to the news press because I thought it was important for the public to understand where I stood on this, even though the polling shows that the majority of people are opposed to it. I consider this to be a taxpayer's investment in our own economy. We are facing a meltdown in the banking industry. A lot of folks that have small businesses and they finance their inventory, they finance their payroll, aren't able to finance that, aren't able to get money to continue with their businesses, even though their businesses are profitable. I was talking to the president of a bank down in Naples. They just simply trimmed by 50% all of their lines of credit for all of their businesses. Now these are businesses that are working, that are making money, but they finance their inventory and their payroll, and they're in trouble because their lines of credit are drying up. And so I felt that it was absolutely critical that Congress become engaged, that this investment in our economy take place. The key is making sure it's done right. We have to hold these greedy executives that cause these problems accountable. Where there's fraud, they have to be prosecuted. Where there's money that can be recouped, it has to be recouped. What got us into this mess was the deregulation of the banking industry and the financial markets. We need to re-regulate the industry in a sensible way. You know, back in the old days when we were all buying homes, you had to go through an underwriting process. All of a sudden, 3 years ago, it didn't matter whether you had a income to pay for your home or not, you could get a mortgage. There was no underwriting done. And that's what got us into this problem, the elimination of regulation. Now, we are facing a very serious problem in terms of our national debt. Our national debt's going to rise to $11.3 trillion with this bailout. But let's put that in perspective. At the end of World War II, the national debt was 109% of gross domestic product. Today, our national debt is about 34% of our gross domestic product. It's going to rise to about 40%. Around the world in the other industrialized nations, national debt's about 50% of gross domestic product. So we're in trouble with our national debt. It's going to go up, and we should try to get that down at some point in time. But we're not at a point where we should focus on the national debt and say, well, our national debt's getting so high we can't do anything else. That's not where we are. So this focus on investing in our own economy is the right way to go. If the government does this right, and that's a big if, if the government does this right, these toxic mortgages that they're going to be acquiring through reverse auctions will be bought at very low prices. People are going to want to stay in their homes. Eventually, they're going to refinance those mortgages, or they're going to pay those mortgages off as the economy begins to kick in. Taxpayers will make money on that. Best example, the bailout of Chrysler many years ago. Chrysler paid off all of those loans plus interest. The taxpayers actually had a win-win. Chrysler stayed in business. The government made money on those loans. I'm very optimistic about this economy. We have the greatest workforce in the nation, in the world. We have the greatest entrepreneurs in the world. We'll work through this, but it's going to take some patience, and it's going to take some investment by our taxpayers in our own economy. Thank you.
The American people deserve and demand a stable banking system. My fear is this is way worse than they're letting on. Have you noticed how when IndyMac was taken over, it was done on the West Coast, 3 hours behind the East Coast and 2 hours behind the Midwest? It was done on Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock California time, which is 8 o'clock here, so as not to panic anybody here to run to the bank and start withdrawing money. And then over the weekend, they had time to put out press releases and tell everybody everything's fine. That way, Monday morning, there was no run on the bank. Also, when Washington Mutual was taken over, similar situation, Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock California time. No panic, no sweat, everybody's fine. Well, folks, I think it's much worse than they're telling us. We have to fix this banking system before we can improve our economy. Now, Senator Saunders is correct. We're only at 34% of our gross domestic product. But as our economy continues to slow and jobs are lost and there's no work and people are hurting, our gross domestic product will reduce, and that will make our debt a larger portion of our gross domestic product. I supported the bailout in its original form because I think we had to do something. I think we had been hoodwinked into years and years of deregulation, and it caused only a greed and lust for money. And folks, the greedy people and the folks that lust for money out there, they took advantage of it. Now, we have to rein them in with new regulation, re-regulate those banks, don't let them have mortgage companies and annuity companies and insurance companies and appraisal companies and title companies. We have to re-regulate the bank so that when you go to the bank, you know you're dealing with a bank and your bank is safe and regulated to the terms that the American people deserve and demand.
Okay, John, we had some leeway on that one. Now we're down to 1 minute per answer. And it will be kept.